Alright, so let's take a look at logical operators in Golang. I've already written out all that we'll need, so go step by step on what each logical operator does. So I created a variable of x and y, and this is just holding Boolean values of true and false. We'll play around with these values so we can see exactly what these operators are doing. But if you ever took a class like discrete structures, like I did in college, these are pretty much the fundamental things that are taught. So we understand, what these operators do, because these logical operators are used a lot when doing different scenarios in your application. So let's take a look at the first one, and this is signified by two ampersands. Pretty much what this signifies is that either both of the values are true. It's if both of the values are not true, then it's false. So we have x and y here, right? If x is true and y is false, that means it's going to be false. But if x is true and y is true, then it's going to be true. So they both have to be true for it to be true. If either or is false, then it's going to be false. Now, if both is false, then it's false. Both of them have to be true for it to be true. So that is and. So that is pretty much how I remembered it, is x and y is true, or whatever variable is holding the value, or whatever boolean is being used, they're both the same. They're both true. Now, or, just as the name implies, which is just two pipes, back to back, which is two pipes, just signifies either or is true. So either x can be true or y can be true. Now, if both of them are true, that's great. I mean, it's true, but either or can be true for it to be true. So if x is true, like in this case, and y is false, it's still going to be true because x is true, either or. Now, if y is true, then that's fine as well. They're both true, so that's fine. But if x is false and y is true, then it's still going to be true because it's either or. The final logical operator is not just returns the opposite of what that value is, or what that boolean is. So in the case of x, the opposite of true is false, because remember, a boolean can either be true or false. So the opposite of a false has to be a true. So that is what you'll use not for. You can check if a value is not true. You can check if a value is not false. And that's going to be used a lot in the future, so keep in mind. And that's signified by exclamation point in Golang. So now let's run this really quick. Alright, so we see that the first one for and is false, because we already described that if both of them are not true, then it's going to return false, because both x and y has to be true to return true. In this case, x is true, but y is false, so it's going to return false. Now for or, it can be either or. X is true, but y is false, but since it can be either or, it's going to take the value of x, which is true. And for the final one of not, it's just going to return the opposite. So x is initially true, but since we want the opposite, we use not. So now it's going to be false. So let's change this around and see what happens. So let's change y to be true, and let's see what happens to, or actually no, let's do this. Let's keep y at false. Let's put a not right here, right? Because now y is going to be the opposite. So initially y is false, so now it's going to be true. So true and true should return true. And let's put a not in front of x and see what happens. And let's put a not for y. Alright, so let's clear that out. And let's run it. Boom. So x and the opposite of y. Y is initially false. We're returning the opposite of it, or returning the not value of y, which is just going to be true. So they're both true now, so it's going to return true. For or, remember, it takes the value of either or, but in this case, both of the values are false, so it is going to return false. There is no true value, so it's not going to return true for either or. And then there's not. Initially, y is false, but since we're using a not on it, we returned it as true, and we already see multiple cases of that already being the case for x for the or case, and y for the and case. So these are some of the logical operators that you can use in Golang. They will become useful later on in the tutorial, and for whatever application that you're building, because once you start using things like if statements and switch statements, these kind of become necessary to make comparisons and do checks based on the boolean that's being returned. So hope that was useful. Leave a like, subscribe, and let's keep going.